Qlik Dork back again. This time I've got episode 12 of my Dorkcast, and we're going to be talking to the architect behind QSDA Pro. And wow, I'm guessing it's Qlik something. We'll have to ask him what the DA stands for in a second. For those of you who have maybe met this guy before, some of you just call him the hat guy. And as you can see in his image, he actually has his hat on. I'm like, I don't know if he goes anywhere without that hat, but we may find that out as well. Some of you might know him as the cookbook guy. I know that when I got started on my Qlik journey, it was a real godsend once I found that website, QlikView Cookbook. And don't let the QlikView and QlikView Cookbook scare you. Awful lot of information about sense there as well, and an awful lot of script. But the thing that really got me going was the ability to see include scripts and functions. When I realized that a lot of what I was doing by hand was just repeatable, coming from my black box object-oriented days, I fell in love with that thing. If you don't know him as the hat guy and you don't know him as the QlikView Cookbook guy, it is Rob Wunderlich. And probably many of you are looking like, I've seen him before. I've seen him before. And Rob, the thing we want to talk about today is QSDA Pro. And what does that QSDA stand for anyway?
Hey, I'm going to jump into that. But first, thank you so much for having me today. And I also want to say that an awful lot of people know me from the Qlik community. So thanks for the shout out to those other projects I've been involved in. But I'm also, the hat is very present on the community, which is where a lot of people have read my contributions and gotten to know me. What does that DA stand for? So that DA stands for Document Analyzer. And the background on that is there's a tool that I started developing for my own consulting use called Document Analyzer in 2009 for QlikView. And QlikView, we called that application thing a document, and that's what it was called. So that was Document Analyzer. And it really started off back in the 32-bit day, to get wonky, when we had a hard time fitting multiple applications on a server because we only had 2 gigabytes to work with. 2 megabytes. Not much space. I don't even remember. That was so old. Back in the day, so squeezing, getting rid of unused data and storing data efficiently became very important. So I initially wrote that tool for my own consulting practice to try to optimize applications and make them smaller, started giving it away, started adding additional analysis over the years. 2015, we started teaching using Document Analyzer to teach performance analysis in the Master Summit for Qlik, another project I'm involved in that I teach at twice a year. And we needed one for QlikSense. So I wrote one that was, again, a community developed thing. Jump forward again, pandemic. I'm not traveling anymore. I'm thinking, what am I going to do with my time? Well, I always wanted to make a fully supported commercial version of the Document Analyzer tool, and hence the birth of QSDA Pro.
Wow, I would have never even put that together. I used that QlikView Document Analyzer. Never would have thought of that. That is awesome.
Yeah, so back 2009, fast forward 2023, here we are with QSDA Pro, focused on QlikSense, not QlikView, and no plans to, it's just not as much demand for QlikView anymore. So we're focused on QlikSense now.
And you did make it a pro version. And what about it kind of turned it into the pro version?
So I originally created, the Document Analyzer for QlikView, it made sense at the time, kind of eat your own dog food. I wrote it in QlikView. And then I took that same approach in QlikSense. And while in QlikSense, the QlikSense Document Analyzer, it kind of worked. The user interface, we all love QlikSense, right? We can click and filter, and hey, we can even make our own charts when we understand this underlying data model. That part worked well. What didn't work well was the data collection. It really wasn't an appropriate platform. I did it as a connector. And then again, the user interface, yeah, it was great for analytics, but that wasn't necessarily the problem, the task. So rewriting it as Pro, couple things. One, I really got to make it work the way I wanted to make it work. So I got to make it purpose driven instead of saying, well, here's my platform. I went out and said, what do I want this thing to do? How do I want it to operate? And then chose the platform, which is .NET and a browser-based interface. So that gives me the freedom to say, I want to stay focused on what I want the tool to do, not, what the platform is forcing me into. Again, not to knock Qlik Sense, but it wasn't necessarily an application platform. It's a great analytics platform.
And that platform itself kept changing.
And it kept changing, yeah.
Kept changing, and now it's even in the cloud. We have a cloud version.
You do, and we can do what we want with Qlik. So this is Pro, and there's a lot of, I want to call them shortcomings in the they were things I wanted, like variable resolution,
right?
Proper parsing of expressions that I really couldn't do in the Qlik Sense side. So wrote it as Pro, and again, wanted to make this my full-time work, which is what it is now, and provide the level of support that people would expect from a commercial product. Prior to this, it was sort of like, if I can get to it, or the community can, then maybe we'll help you. But now I've got a fully supported product.
That's fantastic. And you mentioned variables. Explain that again, what you wanted to be able to do with variables.
So what I wanted to be able to do with variables is we typically nest variables inside other variables. So we have a variable that references another variable that potentially references another variable.
I sure do.
Yes, and that's not uncommon. And the nesting can be, I don't want to say infinitely deep. I don't know. I've never tried infinity nesting, but certainly several levels. Not uncommon to see 4, 5, 6 levels deep. And what happens, what I frequently come up with as a developer is, if I change this variable, what other things are going to be affected? And I want to know what other things are going to be affected for 2 reasons. One, I want to understand, is this going to do I think this is going to do what I want to do? And secondly, I want to know, what should I revalidate after I make this change? What do I need to go look at and make sure that it works still, or that it works in the new way I intended?
And so you take these variables, however many levels deep, and I'm sure Oleg's going to come back and tell he's going 185 levels deep or something to be number 1 in the world. But you can go as many levels deep, and you actually parse those expressions and evaluate them. Is that right?
I do.
That is
them all together.
That's fantastic, because that really would be the only way of knowing. You've got to be able to evaluate those things.
True. So I have also just partnered up with Modio, who has a suite of software tools. And they have Soter and Qlik, some other wonderful Qlik tools that I recommend. So I want to grow this product, take it forward.
For those of you who don't know, Modio is a partner of ours. They're our technology partner. They're a partner I work closely with. And I demonstrated Soter actually at Qlik World while we were there as one of our featured partners. Fantastic project for version control. And so hopefully after your demo, we'll come back and talk a little bit about why they purchased your product and what the plans are to try to marry these things together, because I think there's a brilliant future for that. If you want to go ahead and share your screen, Rob, I would love for everyone to see a demo of this Qlik Sense Document Analyzer Pro version.
Yeah. So what I want to show now is some of the value you're going to get here.
Okay.
And I think everybody's going to agree that you're going to get the value out of, you're going to get your money back really quickly, many times over.
All right, great. And I'm seeing some slides here.
Yeah, so here's just a little slide up, because I've got, so the motto for Qlik QSDA Pro is the sharp tool that every Qlik developer needs. And I really make that I came up with that motto because, it's like, how do you get this stuff done well or efficiently without a tool like this? That's why I say everybody should have this tool. I have a hard time imagining working without this tool. But lately, I've been trying to distill that too into saying that, what you're going to get here is quality, performance, and savings from QSDA Pro. And I just want to demonstrate a few of those things now.
And when you say everybody should have it, I could imagine that there shouldn't be a consultant on the planet that works with QlikView or QlikSense that doesn't use Document Analyzer.
Yeah,
Because
especially
it would,
consultants,
yep, it lets
but
you
also all
walk into an
customers.
environment, find the problems, and solve them and look like the hero. I would imagine that center of excellences within organizations, our large organizations, I'm sure they've got something that they've got this running so that they could track, Dalton Dork creates a new app, wants to put it into production, and they're going to want to analyze that app first. So
Yeah.
I'd imagine that they're using it.
So where I'm seeing it, I'm seeing it from the single sole developer using it with a desktop license and just accelerating their work and improving their quality, all the way up to these large center of excellences and enterprises that are using a multi-user implementation along with the API that's available in QSDA Pro to scrape their own information and produce their own user interfaces and their own scoring and that kind of thing. So
Very
it goes all the way. And I would encourage you don't have to be, if you're a big enterprise and you want to implement this as part of your promotion project, great. But it's also usable right out of the box.
Yep.
Just by the sole developer on the desktop. So let me give you a little bit of a tour and show you a couple of these value propositions. So when you install QSDA Pro, it installs on a Windows server. It's a standalone application. We access it through a browser. You'll go into the admin panel here, and you'll have to find a connection between QSDA Pro application and your Qlik servers. So where are your Qlik apps living? And that can be QlikSense on-prem, that can be QlikSense Cloud, and that can be QlikSense Desktop. And you can define connections to all three. I have multiple connections defined here. And here I am defining, what the host is and other parameters depending on what type of connection I'm making. Once I've defined these connections, one is potentially all I need, I can go to the Analyze menu, and I'm going to get a list of applications available for analysis on that server. Okay. So, and this is the same list I would see if I go into the hub with my user ID. Once I find an application of interest, I can put some other things optional like description and so on, open it up. By the way, I've got some open analysis data, so you can see when I open an application, where's the time going? How long does it take to actually read it from disk? How long does it take to create a user state and so on?
Very cool.
So really trying to cover the whole range of performance issues. You click do analysis and it launches, and it goes ahead and does two phases. The first phase is we collect the metadata from the application, the tables, the fields, the expressions, the charts. And we do not collect any data. So this is important from a security standpoint. QSDA is not interfacing with the values of fields. Okay, we're not interfacing with the values of charts. So you can have a KPI that says total sales, and we're not going to look at the sales number itself or report it or collect it in QSDA. We're only going to look at the expression that calculates the sales and give you some advice on that.
The metadata, the metadata, the metadata, the metadata.
Right. And again, it's a important security boundary that's always been in the design of the DA products, is that we don't collect your data. And this is to make you comfortable with, this is a developer tool, and you don't have a leakage of important, business data.
And so what are those numbers? I see various numbers there, like those light blue numbers.
Yeah, great. So let me come back to that. So we have two phases when we go ahead and launch a new analysis. The first one is the collection phase, where we collect the metadata. The second phase is the analysis, where we're taking a deep dive into that metadata. We parse the expressions. So we have a standalone parser. We look for errors. We make recommendations based on the data. So we got the collection of the raw metadata and the analysis. on the left-hand side here, these tiles. So when something has been both collected and analyzed and it's ready for you to view, it's in the green. Historical analysis can be unloaded, but we retain the collection in a disk repository. And you
Okay.
can bring it back into memory by clicking on it. And then it goes from the
Nice.
pale blue to the green.
Okay.
And then a dark blue is one that's in process. So these are, I have all the history here. And I also have these number of flags. I have the date and the time and the description, but I also have this number of flags. Let's take a
Okay.
look at these flags. So I'm going to click view. The first page I'll go to is the summary page. We have a navigation ribbon up top. And the advice system in QSDA is represented as flags. And these flags are items of interest for you to look at. They could be errors. They could be just best practice recommendations. And they're divided up into 4 major categories: resources, quality, practices, and performance. And on this
So
overview
these
tab,
flags are different than flags that we would create. These
correct,
are like flagged items.
flagged items of interest, flagged by QSDA. Thank you.
Perfect.
And here is the name of the flag, dimension, syntax error, and
Okay.
then the number next to it is the count.
Okay.
So within this application, I have a lot of flags. You may not have as many. This is one of my sample applications, which intentionally generates a lot of flags.
Yeah,
By the
mine all
way,
had 0, Rob.
zero.
Always was 0. Yeah.
Excellent, excellent. You're teaching the next course. By the way, up here under the help, you can get a list of all the potential flags. So these are all the things we're checking for, which you may or
Okay.
may not have present in your application.
Very cool.
Yeah, so we could see that. We get some overview information. I'm going to go to the flag detail here, and I can expand and collapse these. And let's just take a quick look at how we might use this. So here is, I have expression syntax error, 14 of these unresolved. And here's one here, bad field name, order ID. So I can click this information icon here and get a detail panel. Yeah, hey, this expression failed validation, bad field name. And where is that used? Right here in this hyperlink. I can go ahead and click that. Not signed in. And it's going to take me into Qlik and into that application, assuming that I know how to spell.
You don't just use the hat guy as like your usernames?
No, I'm just robbed of my computer. So here's the
Oh
chart.
no.
Yeah, I can go ahead and edit it. Yeah, it's not this one, actually. It's this one, count order ID. I can edit it, fix it. You know, if I lower to here, I'd see what I normally see, that, hey, it's in red, you know, error in expression. And I can correct that. It's just misspelled in the case. I'm not going to fix it right now because that breaks my demo for next time. But so, you know, then you're just in normal QlikSense land, but you can correct that, come back here, and optionally you can just click this green check mark if you want. So these resolved and hide are just workflow items. They're optional to help you organize your work here. So you'll see I have 13 unresolved now. The one I just resolved is filtered out of my list. I can bring it back on.
Now, I would imagine that often these are where you've gone in and you've changed the load script, you've aliased something, and you didn't know that there was impact from you changing a field name, and now suddenly we find out those things.
Exactly. So that's a real common one where you change the field, the load script, and it didn't fix it up. Another one is you deleted a master item, or you renamed the master, you deleted it, and now a chart no longer works. So Qlik does not warn you when you do that, lets you do that. So it's, in my experience, it's relatively easy to create an error.
Yep.
And in some cases, like let's say you're using that master item or that expression in a color expression, right? You're flipping through your app, it all kind of looks good, but there's this color expression. So unless you really know, hey, I've got some logic in there to change the color, basically, it's hard to know that it's broken until your user tells you, which is not the great way to find out.
Yeah, I would think it's probably better to use this than wait for the end users to tell you. Yeah, that's another good reason to be using this tool.
Yeah, so right out of the box, you get these quality checks, are going to tell you, hey, you got some errors, and you can just bing, 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 go through them. If you want to tell me that you have never had an error in your application, feel free to not send me any money. That's great. Uh, let's take a look at another flag, so best practices. So QSDA encapsulates the years of my experience and all the other consultants I've worked with and the entire Qlik, the wisdom of the community is in here. I like to say it's like having Rob on your desk, but it's really not just Rob. Rob is just repeating all these things that he has learned and other people have learned. And one of those is that, hey, it's a bad idea. I got a master measure duplicate definition here. They have two or more master measures contain the same effective definition but use different names, and this creates ambiguity. So we
Yep.
know that's not a good idea. So here's 4 measures. I'm going to open up the detail panel.
Wow.
Their names are up here in orange, and I can see that they're written slightly differently. But because QSDA is parsing these, USDA can determine that these really mean the same thing, guys. All right. Different casing, different number of parentheses, comments, no comments, but these are all the same. They all calculate the same number the same way. So
That is
best practice
really cool.
would be let's use 1. And I could see this one here, margin percent is used 9 times. These other ones are used 1 time. So if I was going to clean this up, I might say, hey, I'm going to change these other ones to use this one. So let's just use margin percent for everything. That's my
I like that because you've got the description in there. So when they do show details, the end user knows this is exactly what is being calculated. So I'm all in favor of that one too.
Okay. So the vote is let's use this one. So how do we make that change? We'd like to say push a button, make the change. We're not there yet. We're thinking about it. But for now, we can go ahead and click this button, filter using this flag. So I'm going to click that button. And my resource views up here now change a little color to indicate they're filtered. And I can see that 12 out of 235 visualizations. I filtered down to those 12 visualizations. So all of these resource pages that we haven't looked at yet are filterable and sortable. 16 out of 363 expressions. So let's go to those expressions. And I have now filtered all these views to everything related to that flag, which should be those 4 measures. So I'm not interested in changing the master library. Those are the ones. I'm interested in changing the ones that are in there. So I want to change this margin percentage, which is used in this KPI to use margin percent.
Okay.
So now I immediately can just hyperlink over there, change it, come back, and I can go ahead and do the other 3 that I need to do, and then clean up the master library.
That is crazy cool.
There you go. So right there, I think you get a ton of value from just surfacing your errors without having to let your users or manually go through and do those. You get some best practices in terms of things like don't do duplicate definitions. We have also some performance.
And I would think this day and age, data governance is being talked about a lot more, which is music to my soul. So I would think that those data governance people that are on teams might use it just for that.
Yeah, for sure. So what I'm seeing in the use in the field is being used by developers who are creating and kind of cleaning up their applications. And in a minute, we'll look at an ad hoc task. But I'm also seeing it by QA folks, team leaders who are using it to evaluate.
Yep.
or evaluate the work of external consultants. Something gets sent out to be done. When it's brought in, it's a good way to get an overview of not only potential issues, but a real understanding of the application. How is it built? How many things do we have of this, that, and the other thing? And how are we using them? So speaking of understanding, so on the visualization tab here, I'm going to go back to the summary actually. We have a calc time distribution chart here and a dot plot. And I can see that, most of my charts calculate in less than a second. That's great. I like that. I've got some outliers here. Actually, let's take another one. Let's pull in this MSQ Performance Sample app.
This is kind of cool how you've kept that history, because I think if I remember in the Qlik View document analyzer, I had to like go back to reload stuff.
Yeah, the Qlik View document analyzer, and you had to save copy. Well, the Qlik View one towards the end, it actually saved it in a QVD, but yeah, it was a little challenging.
Yeah, I'd have to say, hey, I'd purposely do something with it if I wanted that. That's kind of nice, just toggling between those like lickety split like that. I like it.
Yeah, we can save the history. Thanks.
And what do you mean by calc time?
So calculation time, the amount of time it takes to calculate a chart, which should be what the user experience is. I click and make a selection, and then 1.2 seconds later, this chart renders. So we are exercising in QSDA every chart individually. It's not going to map precisely to the user experience, but it should in a relative sense. And the reason it's not precise is because we are doing every chart one at a time. And when the user's looking at a sheet, the QlikSense engine is trying to calculate multiple charts. But what we're trying to call out is that, this chart takes this long to calculate. And so that'll be the slowest chart on the page, for example.
Okay.
So I can see all my charts here, a dot plot of them, and I can see I have an outlier here, one that took almost 6.9, it's almost 7 seconds. I got one way out here that's taken 19 seconds.
Yeah, somebody else wrote that chart. It wasn't me.
It wasn't me. I probably got in. I've probably been hired to fix it, right?
Yes, exactly.
By the way, you can condition your analysis in your collection with a bookmark. So there's an option when you select. So that's usually kind of a recommended practice if you are analyzing an application that has, for example, a lot of calculation conditions where you expect somebody to select something before you start charts. You can set up a bookmark and instruct QSDA, hey, use this bookmark. So
when you're going to go do the analysis, use that bookmark to simulate it.
Right.
That is crazy, man.
So let's take a look at a couple of these calc times and how QSDA can help you. So first of all, it's called out that, hey, these are outliers. There's a calc time here, and we can sort on this column. This is always exciting in videos, right? Watching sorting going on. We can see the arrow there. So we came in sorted descending already.
Yep.
So let's take a look at this guy here that took almost 7 seconds. It's a table. It's got a title. It's on this particular sheet, but I can expand it here, get some more information. These are the dimensions that table's using. Here's the expressions. And this is one of my favorite features. So why is this chart slow? I'm going to kick this little toolbox guy here, and this viz deconstruction dialog comes up. And what we're doing now is we're going to calculate each of these measures one at a time. So the original calc time, the whole chart took 6.9 seconds to calculate. This measure took 6.4 seconds. This measure took on 0.2 of a second. So we know this is the problem child. This is where I need to focus. Okay. At first glance, you might think, oh, this must be the complicated one because it's big and there's a lot going on. But no, this is the problem. And it's because there's a data island involved, which also is raised as a flag around this expression. So you'll see that in the flag.
Okay.
But yeah, but I love this because it gives me the focus to know, well, what is it about this chart I should be looking at if I want to fix it? I want to make it improve it.
That is incredible.
Yeah, I love that one. Here's another example. Here's the pivot table.
Aha.
I'm going to go ahead and launch the deconstruction here. We can see it has a lot of dimensional values, right? This is my
Yep.
sales orders. I got 459,000 orders in this
Yep.
app. Those orders have line items of product and size. So originally, this took 19, almost 20 seconds to calculate this pivot table. And I can see that I have relatively simple calculations. By the way, we do calculate things like calculation conditions as well, reference
Okay.
lines. It's not uncommon to see in a scatter plot a
Yep.
big agger calculating a reference line, and that's the reference line is the slowest part of the chart.
Mm.
So these are relatively simple expressions. I really can't improve some order quantity, but I can say, well, it's returning 7.3 million rows. And is a 7.3 million row pivot table really useful? Is it usable?
No.
Probably not. So why is somebody waiting 8 seconds? So I might, I know my data. So I might look at this and go, well, product and size, those are line items. Each order has multiple lines. Let me take those off and let me recalculate it. And now, hey, I'm coming back in under a second for each one of those. I'm
Wow,
only
even with those,
459,000.
even with that number of rows.
Yeah, even with that number of rows. So that might be the end of the story right there. Again, I do need, of course, to understand, is this useful to my business? But I would know that. But I can play with this a little bit here and say, well, what if I did that? And I can understand, get some insight as to why is this chart slow? It's not the complexity, it's the amount of data. What happens if I reduce the data? Hey, things are good. So let me show you another couple quickies here. We're not out of time, are we?
No, not at all, man. For you, dude.
All right.
As long as you have the hat on, the camera's rolling.
Hey, let's load up another previously done collection or analysis, this bike shop solution. Going to go here into the summary. And here, I'm going to look at this data model chart. I'm going to focus over here on the left-hand side.
Okay.
My data model is 10 megabytes, and I can see that 3 megabytes are used and 7 megabytes of that data model are unused. And I can save 7 megabytes by removing 82 unused fields. Unused data is fields that you can remove from your data model and have no impact on your application, meaning they are not used in an expression anywhere. They're not used in any kind of expression, not a sheet expression, not a calculation condition, not a measure. They're not used in a master dimension. So they don't really need to be there.
That's a significant impact.
Yeah, so here's a significant impact. So I might want to drop those fields. And the easiest way to do that is up here under tools. There's a drop field script generator.
Come on, man.
Wow.
Dude, you're making it too easy.
Making it too easy. And I can just go ahead and click that. I want all these fields, and I'm going to get myself a nice drop fields script statement that I can go ahead and just copy to my clipboard and go paste into my script, reload, and I'm good.
That is nuts. And it looks like you're showing the number of bytes. So you could say, look, I really want to do the big ones.
Yeah.
Right. I could go through, check off the really big jumbo ones and not worry about the others. And when you delete it, you're dropping the fields at the end, so you're not touching the load script at all.
Right. And let me come back to that, but talk about the big ones. So going after the big ones is where you get your benefit, because it's not how many fields we release, right. It's the amount of storage we release that gives us the benefit.
Yep.
And you may not want to release everything, because it could be that you want to leave it around for a self-service user to do something with, or you're not sure down the line. So you can do some triage by just sorting this bytes column. picking the big guys. Oops, not there. And just go to, yeah, that one, that one, that one. Customer contact. Somebody might want that one later. Let me see. I don't need that, and you can go through and pick these up. No, ship date. And you can see here how much you've been saving.
Oh, stop. You even show
So
it
I can
right
go
there.
through and get these big ones, and I can say, I'm not going to sweat these guys right now. I'm not going to spend time on them because the benefit isn't that much to me. But I can see, hey, 5 meg. I've got most of it. I can copy to that.
Now, what I did mention the drop fields. The way you do that, you're going to pin that at the end of the script. Nothing changes in the load script because I do often load a lot of fields and leave room for end users. And if somebody says, man, I really needed that sales detail order detail ID, I'm not going back to my load script and finding the 18 places I've commented anything and having to rechange the comments. All I got to do is come to the end of the script, remove sales order line ID, done. It's back in the script. So yeah. I love the way you do that.
Yeah, and this is definitely can be considered by some people a first approach, like I'm going to drop these at the end. And then I don't have to worry about the script because, for example, sales order detail ID, maybe nobody's really using it, but maybe it was part of a join that was done earlier in your data model building, right? So you don't want to go back and comment it out necessarily loading it from the beginning. On the other hand, a common occurrence is where somebody will say, select asterisk from my SQL table. And they'll pull in every single one. And then we drop them at the end. I say, yeah, drop them at the end as a recommendation to, as a way to get started, right? Let's drop them, see what the savings are. Let's go ahead and validate the application. Things are still good. But you may want to consider if they are really, truly just extra fluff and they're being loaded, it may be sometimes worth commenting them out because of the extra data transfer time and the extra load on the database server. Again, it depends. Definitely recommend starting with drop fields. And then considering if the kind of situation you described where, this is kind of complex, this is fine the way it is, or, this is just junk.
Gotcha. Yeah.
It all comes down to cost benefit analysis, really. I mean, sometimes people talk about, what should I do? And I'd say, well, you should do how you can get the correct numbers in the most efficient and economical way so you can move on to the next opportunity.
Yeah, the thing that you started out mentioning was performance, right? I saw way too often in trying to help customers, which is where I used your analyzer. I would go into customers, plug it in within minutes. I know where the problems are in their apps. I could help them fix them. And within a day, we could solve problems that they're like, we're not getting the adoption that we need. I'm like, well, because it's 25 seconds to bring up the first page. Like I already disconnected 15 times in that amount of time. So yeah, being able to use this for performance, making it as streamlined as possible so that those end users can get the answers they need and make decisions on them and take action on them as fast as possible is the goal.
Great. Yeah. Well said. Hey, let's take a look at that cool variable thing I was talking about, the unlimited nested resolution. So let's say that we have this variable called exp_cd index. Here's the definition of that variable, and we can see it's used 18 times. It's a popular one. These are the field names that are used in it: date index and flag, data lapsed. Let's say, my goal here is to figure out, well, I want to change this. I want to tweak this. I want to understand what's the impact of that. I can right click on that variable and select filter to selected. And now I have filtered down to the things that are associated with that variable. Wow. So we can see here that I include on my list now exp PD index because it uses EXPCD index. That makes sense. It's referencing, it's nesting that variable in there. But if I scroll down, I'll see some other things like EXP underscore PM, which does not use EXPCD index, but it uses EXP PM index and set date field ignore. One of those uses EXPC index, or maybe not, but maybe they use something that eventually uses EXPCD index. So I don't know. I mean, I can look at it here. I don't need it. Actually, I just kind of think, oh, drawing a tree map would be cool. Maybe I'll do that later. But the important thing is I now understand that how is this used? So if I change that, I can now look at everything else that's associated with that.
That's crazy cool.
Okay. The visualizations, the associative logic, I was inspired by Qlik to do something like that, but this is a little different in how I decided I wanted to use the tool. So the visualizations are now filtered to those variables that use EXPC index.
Okay.
Not things that are using things that are used by and so on, except on the original resource here, which is the variables. This is everything. But if I wanted to filter, now that I filtered and said this is the EXPCD index and all the variables that are linked to EXPCD index at some level, I can go ahead and right-click here and select filter to visible. So instead of filter to selected, which is just the gray items here, I'm saying, hey, filter everything to everything you see on this page.
Oh,
and now
man.
It should filter all the way across. So those are some powerful things. Another ad hoc one we get all the time is, hey, where's this field used, right? What happens if I change this field? We're going to drop this field, or we want to know, are we using this field? Where? So let's say I've got a field called territory description. I can just type partial name, press enter. There it is, territory description. Oh, wait, coming up. Oh, the demo oven. Filter to selected. Okay. Here are my visualizations that use territory description.
Wow.
Here's how they use it. They use expressions. What do I want to do? I want to answer this to somebody's email. Where do we use this? How do we use it? Or I want to pass it off to another colleague to make a remediation. I click export right here. Export to Excel. And I've exported this filtered list into Excel. So then I can attach it to the JIRA ticket and say, hey, we're going to eliminate territory description. Here's the charts that need to be updated.
I love it.
So I hope I've given you an overview of, you know, since we're in geek land, come on, I realize that there are, so every time I teach, and I've taught a lot of Qlik classes over the years in data modeling, we're always looking at subset ratios. I'm sure you're familiar with, but, you know, subset ratios it really shows us, do keys match? And there's kind of a rule about, you know, hey, they should always be 100% on the dimension side, the dimension table. If they're not, you've got a quality problem. And I'm always showing the data model viewer, and everybody's hovering, and people are always saying, you know, do I have to hover over every key? And I'm going, yeah, that's what you have to do. But not with QSDA Pro. You can just go in here into tables, keys tab, see the cardinality, the information density, which is whether there's any nulls, and what the subset ratio is. So you can look for those bad subset ratios right here. You can get an overview all in one shot.
Very nice. Very nice. And that was one of the things that I did find. I didn't find any of those other issues, but I found one of those because I was loading some test data. And there was definitely an issue where the dimension had some values that weren't in the fact table. So yeah.
Great. It also shows up here as a flag.
Yep.
Yeah, honestly, this is a guess looking at it and saying, the one with fewer values is probably the dimension table, primary key. But yeah, so we try to call that out.
Very cool. The other one I want you to show, show that functions one, because this is one that I've loved since the ClickView days.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're actually analyzing through all of that stuff, what
Right.
Qlik script functions are being called.
Exactly. And how many times they're being used. And sorry for the wide display here, but we can see, num is used 30 times and so on.
And
So,
the reason I used that I
mhm,
loved it so much was because not only was I building apps as a customer and helping customers build apps now that I'm with Qlik, I used it so that I could do training, because I figured if I'm using sum and min a ton of times, other people probably need to know about those. And if I were to come in and find some of, some very odd functions, or analyze somebody's document that was using a very odd function, I wanted to learn what that function is, because I'll still see code from like my friend Clever, and I'll be like, I didn't even know that function existed.
mhm.
Because Qlik has just continued to add functions. So it's really neat to get a handle of what functions are being used, so you know how to do training within the company. So if you're a center of excellence and you want to help people, if you know what your good developers are using, help everybody else learn those functions as well.
Well, that's a good summary. Yeah, it's always really fascinating to me to hear about how people are using these various features.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really pleased, and I'm always pleasantly surprised at how people are using it. So yeah, the functions I find really interesting. Of course, if I filter on something, this might seem kind of arbitrary, but I'll filter on a field and on address. And okay, it's not being used as a dimension only, so there's no functions associated with that. Let me try. Quantity filter to selected. Yeah, see my functions over here. I can see I'm using
Very
pick,
cool.
round, and sum against that.
Nice.
So the way I use the functions frequently is when I come in, particularly when I'm performance tuning or evaluating an app that I'm not that familiar with. So I kind of go over here and get an idea, what are they using? Because there's some things that are potentially like agar.
Yep.
It's very powerful, very useful, can get overused. Sometimes there's a simpler thing, and can bring performance problems. Again, not saying don't use agar, but I might go over there and say, hey, we got 150 agars. How do we use them? Once
Can
again,
you
I can just
filter? That's what I was about to ask you.
filter. Then I can go over here and say the viz that use agar, what are their calc times like? Right? If I
Nice.
use agar and I filter, and then, hey, I got two charts that have a big calc time. Let me focus. So I'm moving around
That is crazy
looking
cool.
for those potential. Also looking for, uh-oh, uh-oh. There we go, we're back. I was on a remote link there. I'm looking for some functions that I think generally represent potentially a misunderstanding about how to do things in Qlik. One is get current selections. I see
Yep.
that used a lot, and I have a kind of a snarky rule, which is that's almost always the wrong answer. We use get current selections for logic instead of just the associative model or set
Yep.
analysis. Anyways, so I kind of look through and find some bad smells. Occasionally I look through and I find something that's really interesting, and wow, that's a great idea. But I also use it to sort of understand, to come back here to expressions. So under here to the design KPIs, I've got like, what percentage of your charts are using master measures and
Wow.
master dimensions, kind of a development KPI, if you will.
Yep.
But I developed this guy down here, this histogram of expression lengths because I do sometimes find very long expressions.
Yes.
In themselves, they're not bad, but I consider them to be what I call a bad smell, meaning that potentially they indicate something that's more complex than it needs to be, or at a minimum, they're hard to maintain and understand.
Yep.
So, is
Yes.
this something we can simplify, or is this being overly wrought?
And
So this is the histogram.
that gets back to why I called out your flags versus typically what I would do is take those gigantic expressions.
Mhm.
If they were all about a row, there's no reason not to just add that as a flag in the code. So you execute it once during the load script, not 18,000 or 18 million times in the chart.
Yeah, good one. So here I've got some outliers. I've got one out here that's over 2,400, and I can kind of move these outliers off by using my slider here.
Okay.
I can get a little resolution. So this is interesting because this is not Qlik. This is .NET. I'm thinking about, hey, what do I want in a chart, right? When I make my own chart, I want to see the outliers, but I want to whip them out and put them off to the side in a table because I still want them, but I don't want them changing the resolution of my chart.
Wow.
So this was fun writing this. So I've got these outliers and I can see, yeah, I got one that's 2,500 characters long and one that's 1,200 characters long. Let's take a look at those. Go over the expressions. I don't have a length field here, but up here under the view, I can choose columns and I have some optional columns. So I'm going to want the expanded definition length. Click OK. It's added to my table, and I'm going to go ahead and sort on it.
And by expanded definition length, I'm assuming that's where you're evaluating those variables.
Correct. Yeah. Throughout the product, there's the idea of what's a measure definition, which is the text we've typed in there.
Yep.
And expanded, which is after the $ expansion. So any $ expansion calculation or variable substitution. So in this case, I'm looking at this expanded definition length. So here it is, I'm kind of truncating it with a more if it's more than 160 characters. But all of these have this little seeing eye here, which is the expression decoder. Another thing I'm very proud of. So I look at these long expressions.
Look at that.
What does it do? I mean, come on, what does it do? And particularly when I pick up something that somebody else wrote, or my favorite, which is somebody says, this expression doesn't work. Why doesn't it work? And I always say, my first question is, well, what is it supposed to do? So I have to break that down. So here's a tool to do that. So I got it colorized here, like we see in the Qlik Sense editor. But down below, I have this tree view. And I can see it's a function, it's an if function with 2 nested branches, including an aggregation. And we know that an if takes 3 parameters, a condition, a then, and an else. And we can just click on it down here in the tree view and highlight it up above. Okay, that's my condition. And then my then is, it's just a variable, color P white. And, I can see it over here in this variable call out. And then the else is another if. And I can expand that and see, okay, that's an if, and here is it expression, and it just returns a color green or red. And I can dig in there and do that. And as I click these, I can see all the pieces that are here. I can go ahead and click them here and highlight all occurrences.
Oh my gosh.
So I'm really trying to be able to say, well, what's the structure of this thing? What does it do? And calling out some things like how many aggregations, because the more aggregations, the slower or the longer this will take to calculate.
Wow.
It's bidirectional. I can click anything up here and go ahead and in the panel up here, and then it will expand it into the tree view down below and show me where I am. So very powerful tool. Something I've been playing with is this explain view. Let's see if this works. And this is using OpenAI to go ahead and pass that text up, and it's pretty fun. It's kind of amazing. At this point, it's like, hey, everybody's got to have this in their tool, in the product. We're looking at, when I say we, because it's Modio and I now designing this, we're looking at, the value of this and the concerns about how we would use it. It's amazing to me that it is remarkable. Like this Qlik expression is used to determine the color of a cell in a table or chart based on the loss rate KPI, blah, blah. Incredibly accurate in this one. It's so incredible that when it's wrong, it's incredibly wrong. So that's kind of one of the things to work through here, because this can be useful. But if we say, well, this is useful for somebody to say, and some of the focus, groups who I've done with people, they go, this is really good because if I don't know anything about Qlik, this explains it to me. And it's like, the little alarm goes off in my head because I'm thinking when it's right, it's true. Like this explanation is just about perfect. When it's wrong, it's spectacularly wrong with the same voice, the same tone of confidence.
Yes.
And that poor business user is going to get led down the wrong path.
Yep. But that's a great tool, and that's one of the use cases I've been working on. Just trying to play with is where could it be useful? Because it is best for code, either generating code or analyzing code and converting that back to English. And like you said, the problem is if it works 9 times out of 10, you're going to assume that 10th one is right, and it could be really wrong.
Yeah.
But it's getting there. That's pretty neat. So good for you. That's a great natural language generation for a code analyzer for something like that.
Yeah, and I think you hit on it. These have a lot of promise in the structured world of coding, and Qlik expressions are, after all, it's very structured code. So there's a lot of potential.
What you've done is you've expanded all the dollar sign stuff, because if I was an end user and I just right click it and copy out of the cell itself, it's going to be with all the dollar signs and variables. And ChatGPT would have no idea what to do with it.
Yeah, it's going to get confused, or it's going to make something up in a very confident voice. This one's remarkable because it's saying it's used to determine the color of a cell in a table or chart based on, well, hey, if you look at this expression, right, as a matter of, did I get it from a color? Well, I didn't tell ChatGPT that this came from a color expression. It's doing it based on the names of these variables, which I find kind of interesting, not to get too far into the weeds, that, things like variable naming conventions are going to be very important to this AI type understanding, as it's always been important to communicate to other humans. So good variable names, here's another reason to have good variable names.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm particularly proud of this, though. Like I said, the AI, I think it's a bit of a toy at this point, but just the ability I've been able to take. I have received expressions that expand out to be 300,000 characters long.
Yeah.
And with this tool, I can dissect them in just a few seconds and figure out what's going on, and also figure out what the mistake was. These tended to be things that are generated like with a concat statement, where people are trying to generate a list of values in a loop, and in some cases, the loop is being executed 20 times and doesn't need, and it's very quick to see, okay, this is what is wrong. And as you indicated, if you look at the unexpanded expression, this may be 100 characters.
Yep.
And over here, it generates 300,000. Not typical, but real. It is happening.
And it would be more, I would expect that you'd see that more where people do believe in reuse, right? Like I like variables that reuse variables that reuse variables. I like KPIs that use variables. I like master items that use variables. and so they could get quite long.
So I think you've hit on a very important value in this tool, and frankly any tool like this that you might use in a coding environment. And that is, we understand the value of things like reuse of variables, for example, nesting and layering of our application. That's very valuable, it's very powerful. But we do tend to need to start using tools. The more sophisticated we get there,
Hmm.
Otherwise, we get paralyzed. We get change paralysis. Oh gosh, I've got this elegant nesting of these variables, but I'm really afraid to change one because the native tool isn't telling me, well, where are all the
Right.
places I'm using this, right?
Absolutely.
So what happens in my experience is that things don't happen because people are paralyzed, and rightfully so. I understand. So the risk is not there. So having a tool like QSDA Pro can take the risk out of that and give you the confidence to say, yeah, I can make that change. Let's make that change. It's worth it. It's valuable to us, and I can mitigate the risk.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's yeah, there's I can't imagine for anybody who's serious about Qlik work not to be using the tool. Um, and I brought up that slide, hey, this is the QlikView cookbook guy.
Mhm.
Um, that's it. If you're using this and you need help understanding things or want to get better, you've got an unbelievable blog with help. Like, here's how to do it right. Like, follow the script. I mean, you literally broke those things down to scripts of how to do the right things to avoid the problems that would cause that. So if I'm analyzing this right, this thing really helps for performance, reducing size, doing impact analysis, modeling, looking at functions so that you know where to train people. Helps you figure out what it is to do the training, and helps you do a code analysis as well. All in one neat little thing where you basically point it to your app and
Mhm.
you say, go analyze this guy. Um, and you can look at those things. So let's say that I've built my app, I analyzed it, you pointed out a whole bunch of things. I went and fixed a whole bunch of things. How can I compare to see did I get better or worse?
Coming soon. So today there's not a compare tool in the product. You can see the total number of like flags, and you can see some overview of things like the number of, like the calculation time. So you can see like
Yep.
the total calculation time. So right now it's sort of a manual compare of those metrics. We'll be rolling out this year some historical comparisons, somewhat inspired by some things I've seen customers do with the API. There is an API available. So I'm seeing customers building out history. That's been great because it's inspiring, but it also gives me a sense of direction about what's valuable.
Right.
Uh, so today you can compare them by bringing them up. You can also, because it's not like the Qlik one where you have to have multiple copies. You can just bring up multiple tabs and you can go back and forth. Uh, totally admit that we do want some comparison tool. I'm going to show one more thing here, and then I'm going to come back to that question because you mentioned the cookbook and all the articles up there, which I'm really proud of over the years of all the blog posts I put up there explaining an example. So within the product here, within QSDA Pro, there's inline help. And I'm trying to take some of that knowledge and put it up here in the online help site. So if you click
Wow.
that, hey, here's a flag. And the first thing the help should do is explain to you, well, what does that mean? What am I telling you about this flag? And then, hey, start to give you some advice on how to remediate that issue. So trying to take a lot of that knowledge and
That
encapsulate it.
really kicks things up a notch, buddy.
Yeah, and give you some focus. So here's a problem. Here's how we suggest you fix it. Uh,
Very cool. Um,
yeah, so comparison. So Ghetto Clock, which we mentioned earlier. So Ghetto Clock is now integrated with QSDA,
okay.
and I'm not going to jump into that at the moment
But
because I'm
but it is basically a version control system, right?
Yeah. Have you done anything with, have you done a Dork cast with Alex?
Not with Gitto, but I have with Soter.
All right. So,
And
yes.
so it's a version control system, and being integrated with this, right? I could probably think about, in my mind, I would get alerts like, dude, you just checked in an app that's 85 times worse.
Yeah. So you can also launch from Qlik, which Qlik is the, maintains version control, but also has a lot of great tooling for Qlik developers to do things like generate thumbnails and
Okay. Yep.
descriptions. But you can launch the QSDA analysis from there and get an overview of the flags. And if you don't like what you're seeing, you can click the link and go into the full QSDA UI.
Nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
the vision here is that Modio really provides the life cycle tools for DevOps, for the operations of building, maintaining, and deploying applications. And QSDA is going to fit into that workflow as the testing engine. So Modio has experience in this with Cognos, which has they have a broad suite of projects for Cognos. So this is a piece that they're going to drop in. We're all going to drop in together with Qlik, Soter. So Qlik is the workbench-based version control. Soter is the zero-touch version control, which gives you that CI/CD environment.
Yep.
And then we've got the testing engine in between there.
That is very cool. So it's going to integrate with both products.
Correct.
And you're still going to be driving.
I'm still going to be driving. I'm still going to be the guy. Frankly, I love doing this kind of work and want to do it, but I've been operating. I launched this as a one-person company, and I was running up against the limits of things like support and administration and trying to develop. And I decided, nope, I want to develop. So I want to design and develop. And by partnering with Modio, I have now a team that can help me with the sales, administration, and support, as well as additional development talent.
That is fantastic news, and I wanted to highlight that they don't need to fear they're buying this and the hat guy is riding off into the sunset. like I think if I recall our conversation, part of this was so that you could spend more time focusing on development and doing the thing you love, not the things that need to get done, but they're not the things that really drive you or motivate you the way that they do others, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it was time for a bigger team. And the other aspect was the product has grown. There's lots of customers and really couldn't properly service more customers without a bigger team.
Nice. I'm gonna share my screen one more time.
All righty.
And I kind of want to put this thought into people's heads at this point in the conversation. Yeah, we all have to decide whether we're just slapping apps out there and we're checking off a box that said, a Jira ticket came in and told you had to build an app, and you check it off and said that you did. There's an awful lot of people out there that really want to make sure that the app is as performant as possible and is going to help with user adoption, which is going to help with decision making, which is going to help with taking action on things. And that's really the goal of those things from a business user standpoint, right? They weren't asking so they could see numbers on a screen. They were asking for the numbers, which would help drive performance increase, which helps make organizations a lot more money. So that's how I saw it. That's how I always saw your blog. You mentioned the Master Summit. So tell people a little bit about that.
Yeah, thanks. The Master Summit is a 3-day advanced Qlik education event that takes place generally once a year in Europe and in the US. So this will be our 10th year. So we'll be in Orlando this November and Dublin, Ireland in October. So I, along with my colleagues, Oleg Turansky, Barry Harmson, both who are popular Qlik book authors, Nick Webster, and Bill Lay, we cover all kinds of topics. So if you're at that place where, our tagline is take your Qlik skills to the next level. If you're at that place where you're wondering, how do I get this thing done? How do I deal with this set analysis stuff? Incremental loads, different kinds of data models that work well for Qlik. That's the place for you. So
absolutely, and you're not selective. Like, you don't hand pick people. They don't have to prove to you that they belong there.
They don't. If you have any questions, though, reach out to us. If you feel like it might be over your head or under your head, either one. Mastersummit.com. So that's 2 S's. Mastersummit.com. More information there. Contact form, and you of course can always reach out to me on social media or wherever you reach me as well. I'll be happy to answer your questions. But yeah, we're excited.
And I can attest to the quality of that as well. I got to attend. You guys were kind enough to allow me to do kind of an entertaining speech.
Yes,
so I got to attend as a guest entertainer, but I picked up so many things. So sometimes it's nice. Let's say that there is a developer and a super wonderful developer. You're going to learn things anyway. But sometimes it's nice to just say, "Oh man, I really am doing this right. This is the right approach." Or I knew it all along, and now I'm more confident that I'm even doing it right. Fantastic thing to attend. Highly recommend it, whether you may be Center of Excellence programmers in your organization. If you're independent consultants, you obviously should have attended and really kick those skills up. And you guys do the breadth of things, right? It's not just ClickSense, it's APIs, right? I mean, that's what Nick drives.
We do. We have an introduction to APIs, what we call a ClickSense integration, where we take you from zero, if you've got no HTML experience, to in about 3.5 hours, creating an application that embeds ClickSense visualizations and allows selections. So we give that introduction and demystify a lot of the documentation and the details. So we send you home with lots of examples. So we send you home with a whole library of working examples, sample code, and documentation.
Yeah, I ended up with a size problem on my laptop, trying to squeeze everything in. So I had a giant USB that I ended up putting a lot of materials on. But yeah, super valuable. Rob, I can't thank you enough for taking time, buddy. That's you are a legend in this field. If people didn't immediately know your name, I know they knew you as the hat guy. There's no question about that. People know the hat guy, or they've done they've seen the cookbook online and have pilfered some code from there. You're always very generous about sharing code and examples and purposes as to why to reuse things. And like you mentioned, Qlik community as well. The number of people you've helped throughout the giant Qlik family is probably immeasurable. If I could take the total number of customers and the customers that have been touched by something you've done, I'm guessing that's a giant piece of that pie. So very much appreciated, and just being friends with you is much appreciated. That's you're doing great things for the right reasons, and I certainly admire that, buddy.
Well, thank you, and I really appreciate the work you do, and the communication you're doing with the Dork cast and other work and helping people be successful. I think you and I kind of share the same mission or the same joy, and that is making customers successful.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm about, is like, can I help you do what you need to do with this product, and then I feel satisfied.
And that's a good point. Customers can still reach out to you for help, right? I mean, aside from the tool.
Yep.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and you deserve some time in the hot tub after yapping with me for so long, my friend.
Thanks, thanks, Dalton.
Have a great day, everyone.
All righty. Thank you all.